everyone. In this video, I will be discussing the phenomenon of racism as a backstory to most, if not all, African American characters in Southern film. Racism as a concept has been addressed across a wide variety of media and a multitude of contexts. It is absolutely true that within American mainstream media across the board, non-white characters are often identified in accordance with their otherness. However, because of national stereotypes of the South, race relations are always depicted as black versus white, and when black characters are introduced to the story, the subject of race and interpersonal struggle against white oppressors is always a part of the conversation, even if this is not a major point of the plotline. To illustrate this point, I will use two Southern films that have seemingly nothing in common, other than the fact that they happen to take place within the South: Driving Miss Daisy and Interview with the Vampire. Exhibit A, Driving Miss Daisy. For the few of you who haven't seen it, Driving Miss Daisy is a film about an old, stubborn woman in the 1950s who is a terrible driver, so her son hires Hope to be her chauffeur. The entire movie essentially follows this relationship, from Miss Daisy bitterly refusing to ride in the car with Holt to her declaring him as her best friend. Within the first minutes of Driving Miss Daisy, we already see representation of white oppression over their black servants. We first see Idella, sitting alone and underappreciated, eating her dinner at the sink while her white employers enjoy dinner at the table. Idella's character in Driving Miss Daisy serves no purpose beyond representing the presence of racism within the story. She has no backstory, no real character development, no struggle beyond her existence as a servant to a white woman. Honestly, this is true for all African American characters in this movie. Even Hope barely has any depth whatsoever, and he's a main character, but we'll get to him next. In this next scene, we meet Hope. Immediately, Miss Daisy labels Hope as one of them and foreshadows the struggle he will have with affluent whites around him.
Morning, Mama. All I'm asking is that you come down and say hello.
Now, you listen here. Unless they rewrote the Constitution and didn't tell me I still have rights.
Of course you do.
What I do not want and absolutely will not have is some chauffeur sitting in my kitchen, gobbling up my food, running up my phone bills. Oh, I hate all that in my house.
You have Idella.
Idella's different. She's been coming to me since you were in 8th grade, and we know how to stay out of each other's way. And even so, there are nicks and chips in my wedding china.
You think Idella has a personal vendetta against your wedding china?
Don't be sassy. On Forsyth Street, we couldn't afford them, and we did for ourselves. That's still the best way, if you ask me.
Them? Afford them? You sound like Governor Talmadge.
What? Bully, what a thing to say. I'm not prejudiced. Aren't you ashamed?
Hope's other conflicts within the story include being accused of stealing a car he is driving because of his skin color.
What are you doing with this car?
This is my car, officer.
Yes, ma'am. Can I see your registration, please? And your license, boy?
Yes, sir.
What's his name? Worthington?
Wortham.
Worthing. Never heard of that one before. What kind of name is that?
It's a German derivation.
German derivation. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ma'am.
And being unable to use white restrooms.
We're gonna have to pull over, Miss Daisy.
Is something wrong with the car?
No, there ain't nothing wrong with the car. I got the big excuse.
What?
I got to go make water.
You should have thought of that back at the service station.
Our colored can't use the toilet at none of these service stations, Miss Daisy, you know that.
Well, there's no time to stop. We'll be in Mobile soon. You can wait.
Yes. No.
I told you to wait.
Yes, I heard what you said. Now, how you think I feel having to sit up here and ask you, can I go make water, like I'm some child?
I hope God be ashamed.
Well, I ain't no child, Miss Daisy. And I ain't just some back of the neck you look at while you going wherever you got to go.
Enough of that. Let's move on to a very different film. Exhibit B, Interview with the Vampire. Very briefly stated, Interview with the Vampire follows the life and conflicts of hunky vampire Tom Cruise and hunkier vampire Brad Pitt in New Orleans, Louisiana. One would think that racism wouldn't really be a necessary theme within a film about a vampire battling his own bloodlust. But because the South is always connected to racism, Lestat is a slave owner, and black characters are introduced solely for the purpose of illustrating white oppression.
Monsieur Louis, you don't want any supper, no?
No, ma chère.
We're worried about you, master. When is it that you go riding in the field? And how long since you've been to the slave quarter? Everywhere there is death. Are you still our master at all?
It will be all of it.
I will not go unless you listen to me. You must send away this friend of yours. The slaves, they are all frightened of him. And they're frightened of you.
I'm using two examples for the sake of time, but the references I could use are endless. Racism has been addressed both eloquently and clumsily in Southern film, but black characters are almost always defined in relation to their racial struggle. In fact, I challenge you to name an African American character who is not characterized in this way. The fact is, we simply don't find this with the white characters of these films. Sure, they are often depicted as perpetuating this racism, but their story most often goes far beyond that. Miss Daisy struggles with loneliness and bitterness and embarrassment. Booley's wife is overbearing and his mother is needy. Lestat and Louis are vampires. So the main question I think we should ask ourselves at this point is, can a Southern story be separated from the context of racial tension? My answer is no, but. No, you cannot separate something from its context. Southern history is absolutely characterized by slavery and racial injustice. As we know very well from recent events on the Alabama campus, racism is still very much an issue. But I would argue that the prevalence of racial tension in Southern film does not necessarily reflect the actual phenomenon in the South as much as it does the projection of the rest of the country. It is the tendency of other parts of the country to label racism as a Southern problem when it is in fact an American problem. These films do not reflect Southern phenomenon as much as they do Southern stereotypes, which in turn are perpetuated by these films.